super ripe strawberries, red all the way through, beautiful balsamic vinegar, the kind that you really like, has that beautiful flavor. Fresh basil from the garden, even a combination, so much better. Today I have purple, I have sweet, and I have Italian. And then, of course, freshly ground black pepper. When you put these flavors together, you're going to end up with the most spectacular jar of strawberry preserves you've ever had. This is not the strawberry preserves for your toast, your English muffin, though it would be incredible. This is for your cheese platter. This is for your grilled crostini. This is for on top of homemade ice cream. This is for serving with whipped cream and a slice of grilled and buttered pound cake. This is good stuff. It would cost a fortune if you bought it, but I'm going to show you how to make it. As beautiful ripe strawberries, as ripe as you can get them. A beautiful strawberry is when it's ripe all the way through and it's red all the way through. I get so distressed when I get those strawberries that they look beautiful on the outside and you take a bite and they're white in the middle and they taste like a container. That's so frustrating to me because you know that they were not picked ripe and they were picked that way so they would travel and not bruise. Anyway, if you can grow your own strawberries, that's great. If you can go to a U-Pick place, if you can go to a farmer's market where the quality matters a bit more than making sure that, the strawberries arrive without a little bruise. I'd rather have a bruise and a ripe strawberry than a pristine looking strawberry that tastes like styrofoam. That's just me. We've got our chiffonade of basil. Now a chiffonade is simply you take your leaves of basil, no stems or anything like that, and you stack them. Then you roll them into what's like a little cigar. And then with your knife, very thinly, you slice across. And that's going to give you these little threads of basil. That is called a chiffonade. I will show you with a knife at another, we'll do a knife skills lesson, so I'll show you all that. But I just wanted to, it's important for this dish. It looks prettier in the jar. We've got our balsamic vinegar. Now, balsamic vinegar, you can buy the really inexpensive stuff, or you can buy stuff that costs a small fortune. You want good stuff here, but it does not have to be your $75. That would be a waste. We're only, that would be incredibly nuts. But I have a rule where if it's not delicious, I don't see the reason to buy it, even if it's inexpensive. There's lots of places that I save money. You know how I can be aggressively budget-minded. That's a more polite way of saying cheap. But I don't like wasting money. I don't like wasting food or anything else. But I also consider it a waste if I bought something because it was cheap, but I don't enjoy it. So this bottle probably costs about $14, and it's not a very big bottle. But if you care about what type of balsamic vinegar I'm using, I'll try and link it for you. Now, lemon juice. Now you would think, especially my being the fuss budget that I am, that I would be focused on using fresh lemon, which would make sense. Except when you're doing safe canning, especially when you're water bath canning. It is very, very important, as sad as it is to say, that you have to use bottled lemon juice. And that is because that amount of acid is guaranteed. When you're dealing with fresh lemons, some are more sour, some are more sweet, and so your acid level rises and falls. And when you're canning and using acid as your safety mechanism, it is absolutely imperative that you have stable acid levels. And the only way to have that is by using bottled lemon juice. So, unfortunately, it is required. Now, if you're going to make your jam and not can it, and you're going to freeze it, or you're going to put it in the fridge and just eat it eat it quickly, by all means, use whatever you like. Then we've got salt, and we've got freshly ground pepper. And I mean freshly ground like this was ground 5 minutes ago. We've got a little bit of butter. Now, that seems like an odd thing, but butter helps reduce the amount of foam that ends up at the top of your jams. It's annoying when you get that foam on top, and it ruins how beautiful it looks in the jar. That little bit of butter, that little bit of fat actually eliminates that foam, or significantly reduces that foam. We've got our sugar. I use only organic pure cane sugar. If all you have is beet sugar from the supermarket, the regular stuff, it will not kill you, of course not. I just don't use it. I don't have it in the house. It's one of those places where if you can, if it's okay with your budget and it's all right, it really does make a difference if you would switch to the pure cane sugar. It really does. But just in general, in your baking and your cooking, even in your tea, it's just one of those places where the real stuff does matter. But if what you have is regular sugar, it works fine in this recipe. I have tested it, it works fine. And then of course we've got our pectin, which I explained to you before. This is from Ball, and it's low or no sugar. And it's really important because when you've got real high levels of sugar, while yes, that does function as the preservative, what it also does is block the flavor of the fruit, which is the whole point of the exercise. We want to be able to taste the strawberry and the basil and the balsamic vinegar. And if it's just really high in sugar, that's the main flavor, and that is not our goal. So we're all set up here. When we come back, we'll get started. Here we have our strawberries. Now what we want to do is we want to crush them. You can use a potato masher, whatever works best for you. We want to crush them, but we don't want to turn them into a liquid. These smell so good. Now I held back a few strawberries, and yes, these are from the garden. And it's not so easy to get enough strawberries to work with around here because my daughter has taken to making herself these smoothies with the homemade yogurt, and she can't stop. And I say to her, can you at least save me some strawberries? And she says, I'm trying. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with I'm trying. Anyhow, if you use a potato masher, you're going to get a bit more of a puree. I like it chunky. So that's why I'm using, this is a really old, I use this in my mortar and pestle. And I just like the texture that I get. I cannot link this. This is, I got it in an antique store 50 million years ago. So it's releasing all of those juices, but I want to be able to see strawberry. Okay, then I take some of the nice big whole ones that I left, and I just give them a squish like that. And the juices start to run, and if you could smell these strawberries, oh my gosh, they're incredible. So now we want to make sure our measurement is right, because these are, when you're working with canning, you're kind of working with formulas. So even though we're all nice and crushed, we want to make sure that what we have on hand is about 2 3/4 cups of strawberries. So let me actually grab a measure. So we've got our beautifully mashed strawberries. I want to make sure I have the right amount. Now this should be right because I did everything by weight, but just to make sure, I am pulling it aside and taking a measurement. Because when you're canning, you want to make sure that you're working with as close to spot on as possible, because this essentially functions as a formula. And I can already see that we're right, but I'm going to keep going anyway, just so I can be absolutely 100% sure, because I do want you to check too. Now, if by chance, you have a jam that does not set, or a preserve that does not set, people get very upset about that and they say, oh, it failed. I turn that into a sauce. I call it a sauce, and it ends up being still incredible. Don't let anyone, talk you into, oh, well, it failed, throw it out. Absolutely not. What you have there is a dessert sauce. You did it on purpose. This is spot on. You did it on purpose, and you keep moving. So now what you want to do is to make sure that we're building flavor. We are going to add our balsamic vinegar and our lemon juice. And we're going to let this sit. And that's going to just allow these flavors to marry and to intensify. Okay? Oh gosh, that smells amazing. And we let this sit and let the flavors develop for as little as 30 minutes or up to 60 minutes. Okay, so we're going to let this rest for 30 to 60 minutes. The flavor is going to develop, and it just becomes more intense. And anytime you have an opportunity to build flavor, take it. Now, I'm not being fancy today, but I am showing you something. This is something that I do on a regular basis during our growing season. I go outside and I make little flower arrangements. Now, why is that relevant here? Because 90% of this flower arrangement is actually herbs. And I just wanted to bring something to your attention because maybe you don't know. But in the restaurant world, it's very important that any flowers that we have on the table not have a scent that's going to interfere with the flavors that we're going to be putting on the table. So that's why, it's, you see people make these gorgeous flower arrangements and they're roses and lilies. And, my favorite flower is a stargazer lily. I absolutely adore that scent, but it absolutely cannot be on the table during food service because the aroma is so strong, it's going to interfere with the way your food tastes. So when you're making flower arrangements for your table or for your kitchen, you want to try and make beautiful arrangements using the blooms from your herbs, because every one of these things smells incredible, but every one of them is food friendly. So, I mean, I've got rosemary, mint, sage, lemon balm. I've got all these beautiful things in here. And they're herbs. And every one of these, except for that dahlia, which I checked, has no aroma whatsoever, these beautiful herbs smell absolutely stunning, but they are all food friendly. So they're not going to blow out your palate. So that was just a side note I thought I would share. And I don't think it looks like we sacrificed anything. Instead of using, the fancy flowers that probably cost a fortune, we used herbs. And as we go, I pull out of here and I cook with it. And then I refill. And as the vase I'm using was actually made by a viewer who I just adore, and I love this thing, and I've had it full of flowers since she sent it to me. So just a side note, when you're setting up flowers for your kitchen or for your dining table, please try to remember using food-friendly aromas. Now those stargazer lilies and roses and all those scents are spectacular, and they're great in your bathroom, your living room, your entryway, just not your food areas. So here we have, in our pot, we have our strawberries, balsamic vinegar, and lemon juice. We've got our pectin. We've got our salt, our freshly cracked pepper, and our butter. And the butter is to help reduce the foam on top of our final preserves. When you're adding your pectin, you want to add it a little at a time so that you're not going to get clumps. Now, the reason I'm not using a whisk, which would make that job easier, is that your strawberries are going to get all stuck in the tines of a whisk, which is very, very annoying. So we're going to let this come up to temperature. We're adding our water. If you could smell this. Oh my gosh. The smell, the aroma of the sweetness from the strawberries combined with that bit of acid from the balsamic vinegar is absolutely beautiful. Okay, just as we start to come up and I start to see just a little bit of activity in the pot, I'm going to start putting in a little at a time the pectin. Very, very important that we do not get clumps. So I sprinkle and stir. When you see it completely disappear, you add the next. Some people may think that this is a little fussy and just go ahead and drop it all in. I don't. I really find that any opportunity to make sure I don't have issues later is worth the little bit of extra effort now. While we're waiting, we are going to be using a water bath canner, but I have an electric canner that I like very, very much. Now, what I like so much about it, see, we're done. What I like so much about it is that it does both water bath canning as well as pressure canning. And it's just really easy to use. It sits on the counter. It's just a great little contraption. I don't have a relationship with them at all. I just really like it. It is the Presto, I guess it's the Presto electric canner. I'll link it if I can. Okay, so we've got our salt. Salt really does, now we're going to bring this temperature down, a little too high yet. And we've got our pepper. And the minute you add that pepper, you can smell it. It's so delicious. Now, this is not going to read as spicy. I'm going to let all of that marry for just a moment. Okay, we're just about there. We're going to drop in our butter. It's just a small amount of butter. It will not read as part of your flavor. The fat helps with the foam. And by the way, if you do forget this part or the foam is an issue, you know, the foam is still there, it does not ruin the flavor. It's just one of those things that makes it more beautiful in the jar. So we want our preserves to come up to a nice rolling boil that even when you stir, continues to boil. Now you see, I'm stirring and I'm still boiling. I'm going to give this another couple of seconds. Because right now what it's doing is it's activating that pectin. Okay, now it's still boiling even though I'm stirring. We're going to go ahead and add our sugar. We don't want it to scorch, so keep stirring. But we want this to stir on a rolling boil for 1 minute. Turn it off. Take it off the heat. Now we're going to watch for foam. If there's any foam, which I actually have none, if there's any foam, you use a spoon and just take it off. I'm going to let this cool for just a few seconds and then we're going to add our basil. I don't want to add the basil when it's screaming hot because it'll cause the basil to turn black. So what I'm just letting it settle down just a moment. Absolutely beautiful. This stuff smells incredible. Give it another 30 seconds or so and then I'm going to add our basil. Now here's the question. You have a choice at this time. You can choose to add a touch of vanilla or leave it as is. I love the way the vanilla, it adds yet another layer of flavor. The recipe, it makes it an optional addition. I'm going to choose to add it. That's our vanilla. Our basil. Now I didn't drop the basil in as a clump. I spread it because again, we don't want it to just kind of get all stuck together. Give it a good stir so it releases those oils and perfumes the entire preserve. Look how beautiful this stuff is. If you could only smell it in here. Now we had a little dish in the freezer because this helps us check our set. So we just take a little bit of our jam and we put it on there. And you see on that cold, cold plate, it's not moving, it's not dripping, it's not doing anything. That shows you that our jam is going to be beautifully set. But when you push it, you'll see that it wrinkles. I hope you can see that, but there are little teeny tiny lines. I'll try and zoom in. You see that? It just kind of wrinkles. That tells you, and it doesn't leave a track, our jam is perfectly set. So now we're at the point where we're just about ready to can. So we need our equipment. So this is a canning funnel, and this is for a wide mouth, but it also does a regular mouth. Now, why this is important is that it allows you to fill your jars without getting all the filling on the outside of the jars. If the outside of your jar gets dirty or sticky, it will interfere with your seal. Okay, so before we actually do seal our jars, we want to wipe with a little paper towel and vinegar, just to make sure, even though it's very likely that there'll be nothing on the edges, it's worth it to make sure. So that's a canning funnel, and it comes with this canning ladle, and it's just the perfect amount because it holds 1 cup. And it's just the way it sits on the edge of the jar, and it's nice and deep, so it makes it easy to work with. And this is a jar lifter, okay? And this helps you pick up your jars from your hot water without burning yourself, and it's a very important tool, and it is no fun at all without it. Make sure we give everything a final stir. Now, I like to have more jars on hand than I think I'll need. It's not any fun to find out later that you should have had more jars. Now, your jars, you want them to be spotless. When you're canning, sanitation is the biggest thing that matters. Okay, so let's make sure that you can see. Okay, so we've got our jar, we've got our canning funnel, our jars are nice and clean, and we're going to leave a 1/4 inch headspace. Okay, so that's going to be right up here, right up there. Headspace is important so you don't blow the lid off your jar. Look at this stuff. It is so beautiful. Just a tiny bit more. We're going to fill our jars. Now we've got our canner ready. It is heating. I'll show you that in just a moment. Now, if you don't have one of these electric canners, that is not a problem. All you need is a nice deep pot that will allow you to have enough boiling water that it sits above the jar by at least an inch. Now, if you have 3.5 jars, you cannot seal a jar that's halfway sealed. So what you do with that is you fill it, and then you keep that one in the fridge, and that'll just be the one you use first. Quarter inch. We're just a little shy, right? Okay. And then we have one more jar, but I don't have enough to fill it. But I am not, by any stretch of the imagination, going to waste it. Fill the jar as much as you can. That'll go in the fridge, and that will be eaten probably the minute this camera gets turned off, because this stuff is absolutely delicious. I have a bowl of soapy water behind me, and everything that I'm doing after I've used it, because this stuff can be kind of sticky, after I've used it, it goes right into my bowl of hot soapy water, and cleanup is a breeze. So after our jars are all filled, we're going to reach down and just, with a butter knife or a chopstick, you just want to debubble. We don't want any air bubbles. Let's just slide right in. And you may even find that you end up with a little bit more room. I have a little bit more room in that jar. I'm going to fill it because I want to make sure that we are at the right headspace, which is a 1/4 inch. So I tap again and debubble again. Now I'm going to pretend you're all not here, and I am going to lick this. Oh my, Oh my goodness. And now we're going to add our lids. Remember, fingertip tight. We cleaned we clean the rims of our jars with a little touch of vinegar on a paper towel or a cloth, whatever you have handy. As long as it's clean, we spin, and when it catches, we give it just a tiny little bit of a turn after that, and we stop. Do not crank down. That's it. Off to the canner. Now this is the canner that I'm using. This is the Presto Precise Digital Pressure Canner. It also does water bath canning. It's not for huge batches, but it's perfect when you're making smaller batches or you don't mind making them more often. I like this because it doesn't require so much babysitting. So I use this all the time. Throughout harvest and canning season, this thing lives on my counter. It never gets put away. When I have huge batches, I break out the big guns and I break out that real big canner. I've got an all-American pressure canner. I love that thing. When I die, I expect it to be thrown in with me. I'm taking it with me to the afterlife for my afterlife canning. That being said, any pot will do as far as water bath canning, as long as your jars are covered by at least an inch of water. 2 is better in my humble opinion. Now, I am at sea level, so sea level absolutely matters when you're figuring out your timing for canning. I have to can, water bath can, these jars of preserves for 10 minutes. There are charts available, and I will link it for you so you can figure out exactly what your altitude is, and it will tell you how long you have to can for, whether it be water bath or pressure can. It is very, very important. The safety of your preserves is dependent on getting that number right. Just to make sure I don't leave anybody confused, I went back and I added a bit of the chart. So, for example, I am at 1,000, under 1,000 feet in altitude. So we water bath can for 10 minutes. 1,000 to 6,000 feet in altitude, 15 minutes, and if you're above 6,000 feet, 20 minutes. Really important information. So I just figured let's go ahead and add it. Now the next thing you want to do while you're waiting for your canner to come up to the boil is you want to set up your place where your jars are going to go when they come out of the canner. So you've got your jar lifter, and it's important to have a towel down because what you want to avoid is shocking your hot jars. So if you were to have, let's say you have stone countertops, marble or granite or something like that, they tend to stay kind of cold. If you just take those hot jars and place them on that cold surface, there's a very high probability that your jars will crack. So even though I'm on wood, all of my countertops are butcher block, I still don't take the risk. I put down a towel and I'm ready to go. So when I take each one of my jars out, they always rest on here. And then we're going to be listening for the ping. And that ping sound is music to a canner's ears because it means your jar's sealed. I'll show you. If by chance you are using the same canner I am, on water bath, don't seal it. Okay? The sealing this part down and locking it all down is for the pressure canning. I automatic pilot tend to do that, and then I have to remind myself to undo it. So here's your reminder, undo it if you're water bath canning. Okay, our timer has gone off. And we're using our jar lifter. There it is, the sound of your jars pinging. That means everything went just right. There's another one. Thank you for spending time with me today. Please make this. I truly believe you will love it. Lots more recipes for canning, pressure canning, water bath canning, steam canning. Lots more to come as the harvest rolls in. You're going to love this stuff. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.